So what has kept you rocking over 30 years?
I guess because I love it. I guess that's it's part of your life. There's no explanation for it really. It's what you do. It's who you are. What you love the best. And,
Okay, so some people don't know that you were the original singer of ACDC. What recordings do you appear on?
Well, I'm one of the 5 founding members of the band. Myself, Malcolm and Angus Young, and Colin Burgess and Larry Van Crete. And we recorded and released in Australia Can I Sit Next to You Girl, back with Rockin in the Parlour. That was a big hit straight away for us. So we were only together a short while already, and we were in the spotlight straight away. I did record a few other songs too with the band, Rock and Roll Singer, Soul Stripper, etc. And I was about to record Baby Please Don't Go for our first album, and then the split happened with myself and the band, and Bon Scott joined, and he re-recorded a couple of those songs and released them on the first album. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So how did the original ACDC form?
Well, jeez, going back a little while. Well, I've been in a band in Australia called Velvet Underground, which is the Australian Velvet Underground, and whilst I was with that band, they used to talk about it, former guitarist Malcolm Young. They used to be with the band, and he'd split. And then after the band actually did split up, I answered an ad in the paper, in the Sydney Morning Herald, for a heavy rock singer and all that kind of thing. And Malcolm Young was on the other end of the line, and he said he was putting together a new rock band with Colin Burgess and Larry Van Crete he had. And he'd heard of me, of course, because he'd kept in touch with the other guys from Velvet Underground. So he said, get over. And it was in Newtown, in a suburb of Sydney. And we jammed, and it was great, and we shook hands. And a week later, Malcolm just explained to us that his younger brother, Angus, who was with a band called Kentucky, his band had split up, and whether Angus could also audition for the band. Nobody had any objection to that, and Angus came along, and we jammed, and it was great. So we shook hands again, and there was 5 of us in the band. So that's how it started.
How would you describe your relationship with Bon Scott?
Well, we met Bon when we were playing in Adelaide in South Australia, and Can I Sit Next to You Girl, I think, was number 3 or 4 on the charts. And Bon had been with a band in the 60s. He was a bit older than us, called the Valentines, and he, along with the Valentines, had recorded a song called My Old Man's a Groovy Old Man. I do remember it. And it was actually written by the Easy Beats, another great Australian band, and George Young, the older brother of Angus and Malcolm, was in the Easy Beats. So Bon knew the older brother. And when we were in Adelaide, we were booked by an agency run by a fellow called Vince Lovegrove. And he was also in the Valentines as well with Bon Scott. He was the other singer with Bon. And so when we were in town, Vince introduced Bon to the band, and Bon used to hang around with us, and he'd come to the gigs, and he'd be in the front rocking with everybody else. And so that's how we actually met Bon. And I met him again afterwards, after he had joined the band. And we had a private conversation, just the 2 of us. We met accidentally at Albert Studios. I was actually recording with my other band, Rabbit, at the time. And we had a very private conversation, just man to man, and we shook hands with each other, and everything was cool, and we wished each other, the very best of luck, and so that was pretty cool.
Your new solo CD is entitled Sinner. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I was touring Europe, and I was doing one show called In the Beginning for the ACDC fans over there. They were asking me to come to Europe. They wanted to hear me singing and see me performing. A lot of the fans, of course, were familiar with Bon and Brian Johnson. And so I went over there with a show at the time called In the Beginning, and I did, for the avid fans, the songs that I sang with ACDC originally. In the beginning, of course, of the band. And I did a few classic rock songs of theirs as well, because there are a lot of fans who wanted to compare my voice with Bon's and Brian Johnson's, of course, and I was very happy for them to do that, and it was just a great time. The fans had a fantastic time, but at the end of the shows, everyone was asking me when am I doing my next new CD. Of course, I went back to Australia after that and got in touch with one of my mates from Rabbit, who'd been producing records and writing songs, and I'd written songs with him in Rabbit, and we got together and we put down Sinner in Newcastle, just north of Sydney, and it's indicative of the same kind of heavy, hard-hitting rock.
So, what has been the finest moment of your musical career?
Well, I hope that's yet to come, to tell you the truth. I've had a long career, and there's been a lot of highlights. There's been some lowlights too, as happens in anybody's career if you've got a long career. It does happen. But I mean, you never forget your first anything, really, I guess. And first record with ACDC, and first film clips, and playing at the Sydney Opera House. I mean, the first you'll never forget. They were fantastic. And but just touring Europe, playing at the great spots. I remember doing a gig on Mount Kitzbühel in Bavaria, in Germany. It was right on top of one of the mountain, very famous mountain there, where they do a lot of the Winter Olympics up there. And we did a show right up on top of the mountain, fire on top of the mountain, and it was fantastic because you could just see the Alps as far as the eye could see with this particular gig. But Sinner has had great reviews. I mean, I couldn't have written better reviews myself for the album. I worked with some fantastic Australian rockers who just put it together in a matter of weeks, really. And I've played it with the Badasses, and it just wreaks havoc wherever we play. And so I'm just looking forward to continuing my career.
Excellent. So, do you have a message for your fans, new or old, before we leave?
I just want to say one thing to all the fans out there: long live rock.
All right, thanks. Say bye.
Bye.